years ago, I was asked to handle the case of a wonderful woman who'd started taking too many oxycodone pills after seeing her neurologist for severe neck and back pain. She was being prescribed literally hundreds of oxycodone and other dangerous narcotics, sometimes weekly, by her doctor, alongside a cocktail of other highly addictive sedatives, many of which should never have been taken together. Alone and isolated in her struggles, this went on for more than 6 months. Yet during this entire time, neither of the two pharmacists who were filling all of those prescriptions ever reached out to her doctor, to her, or to her family about the danger she was in. One morning, she collapsed, unconscious, at home. She died the next day of a combined overdose of oxycodone and diazepam. In court, her pharmacist argued that she'd had valid prescriptions, and they weren't liable for her death, even though as pharmacists, they clearly should have known that all of those drugs, especially some that were contraindicated as overprescribed by her doctor, would likely kill her, and did. But her life and the life of thousands of people in similar situations mattered. And so I handled her appeal on behalf of her family all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. My name is Stephanie Alexander, and I've been an attorney for more than 30 years. Being a lawyer was the only job I'd ever wanted because to me, at its very best, the law is about protecting humanity. Since graduating from the University of Chicago Law School, I've spent the last 3 decades of my career trying to help improve society, mostly in the areas of patients and student rights. But today I stand before you arguing for humanity, trying to do my part to impact the epidemic of loneliness and isolation that's gripping our world. The root cause of many of the main issues I see lately in my profession and in the larger world today. The facts are stark. Nearly 2/3 of American adults consider themselves lonely. And this has nothing to do with the COVID containment measures that kept us inside. Interestingly, and perhaps shockingly, the issue of loneliness is starkest for the youngest among us. It's projected that kids born today will likely grow up with as many computer, AI, or virtual friends as they will real human being friends. More specifically, a 2019 study from the large health insurer Cigna found that 80% of Gen Zers, 71% of millennials, and 50% of boomers were clinically lonely. Men are lonelier than women, and those who identify as Hispanic, Blacks, or other minorities are even lonelier. And now, as more and more of us gain access to advanced technology, we're using our smartphones, tablets, and computers to ironically stay connected, all the while having less meaningful face-to-face contact. Too many of us go through every single week without having a meaningful conversation with another person other than a family member. It's probably true in your life or in the life of someone you know. I know it's been true in my life at times. I remember during the pandemic, I opened my front door and I put my garbage outside, intending to take it on down to the dumpster when I left. But I had a Zoom meeting, so I went back inside and promptly forgot all about it. When I next opened my front door, I found a letter from the condo association taped to it, fining me for leaving my garbage outside for so long, because that was against the rules. It was only then that it dawned on me. It had been 3 days since I opened my door and saw another person. It's like being in some weird wormhole or something like that. None of my neighbors even seemed to notice or care that something might be off. People are missing out on the important physical, spiritual, emotional, and other benefits of face-to-face connection and conversation. We don't meet much in community anymore, and it's damaging our physical health along with our psyches. A recent study by UC Berkeley found that loneliness actually increases our mortality risk by nearly 30%. The equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Isolation eats away at our self-esteem, increases our blood pressure, heart disease, anxiety, depression, and even our dementia risk. And so I ask, can we even consider a society as functioning if so many of us, especially the youngest, are so lonely and isolated? If so few of us actually have meaningful face-to-face interactions anymore? Given this sad state of affairs, I wondered, how might I bring more light into the world, more connection? So I decided as an experiment to go out and meet 90 new people in 90 days, to learn their name, to have a real conversation, a genuine moment of connection, one that would leave us both a bit uplifted. And so I did, and the process was so transforming that I continue it still. Over the past year, I've met literally hundreds of people in what would normally be considered mundane places. And I've had poignant, wonderful conversations with virtually all of them. Some of them were so riveting that I started taking them down in a notebook so I wouldn't forget them, so I wouldn't forget these people. One of the things that meeting all of these new people reminded me of something that I'd long forgotten. How wonderful, quirky, interesting, poignant, and funny people really are. I'll give you some examples. I met a woman named Fabi. She had recently immigrated here from Venezuela. I found out in talking to her that she'd recently started her own highly successful business here while only being in her 20s. She reminded me to be grateful for all the opportunities around us. And then there's a guy that I'll call Brad. We met playing pickleball. I love pickleball. And he beat me badly, but even so, I stopped to talk to him after the game to find out more about him. Turns out in the last few years, he lost his house in a hurricane, battled a deadly infection requiring 6 separate surgeries, then was diagnosed and treated for cancer. Now here he was beating me on the pickleball court. And I never would have known any of that had I not stopped to talk to him. He's the very definition of resilient. And then there's a wonderful woman that I met named May. May is 80 years old, and we met at the counter of my local diner. She had stopped in to eat, she told me, driving herself down all the way to Key West. So I naturally asked, May, what brings you to Key West? Why are you heading down there? A broad smile went across her face, and she said, I'm going to Key West because I want to party on Duval Street. YOLO! I hope she had a great time. These are just a few examples of the countless stories I now have, stories that would have passed me by had I not stopped to connect to people. Now, I can't say that everyone I tried to connect with was nice, but the vast majority were, and I had my own days where I was cutting and short-tempered, and I'm not proud of that. But you never know what someone else is going through. And as the immortal comedian Robin Williams said, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. And so I try to remember that. Before meeting all of these new people over the last year, I was a world-class introvert. My kids will tell you I was always the most awkward parent at student-teacher functions. Straight up. They'd be like, Mom, if you're just going to embarrass us, just don't speak, please. But having so many transforming experiences unexpectedly brought me out of my shell. So for those of you introverts in the audience, and for those of you who might want to start having meaningful conversations with new people, I've created an acronym which encapsulates the approach that I took. SHINE. The S stands for smile. When you meet someone new, it automatically makes you feel more confident and makes the other person feel more at ease. H stands for say hello, hey, howdy, hi, or some other greeting. It lets the person know that you might want to be stopping to talk. And I stands for interest, meaning it's always a great icebreaker to make a point of something of interest in the context of which you find yourself. Like, what brings you to this Tallahassee Waffle House early Christmas morning? That actually happened to me. The N stands for name. Tell them your name and ask them their name. It automatically deepens the connection. And E stands for exit. When you're done, whether you've been talking for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, say goodbye or some other appropriate parting remark, even if it's just, great meeting you, good luck on your test tomorrow. This is how I reconnected with my humanity and how you can too. One small, meaningful conversation at a time. And by the way, that appeal I handled for the woman who died of the oxycodone overdose ended up changing 40 years of pharmacy law in Florida. So now pharmacists, thank you, have a greater duty of care to watch over the kinds of prescription risks that hurt her. It also helped lead to the adoption of Florida's narcotic prescriptions registry, which now requires that virtually all narcotics prescriptions in the state be entered into a database searchable by doctors and pharmacists, thereby virtually eliminating the kind of overprescription that caused her death. Because she mattered. She should not have had to fight her issues alone. She shouldn't have been lonely to begin with. She deserved a larger community that would have supported her because she mattered. We all matter. We all want to matter to someone. We all want to feel seen and heard. We all want a kind word when we're lonely. So I challenge you to change the world along with me by making a conscious decision to go out and have meaningful conversations with new people every day, to shine as beacons of hope and connection for all humanity. One new kind word, one new gesture of friendship, lifting up another, even a stranger. We can do it together, but we cannot do it alone anymore. Shine your lights as bright as you can. Help light our way. I'll be with you on the path. Let's change the world one conversation at a time, and let's start today. Thank you.